Welcome everyone. Ladies and gentlemen, it's the March 19, 2013 Inland Wetland Commission public hearing on application 13-003R. During the public hearing, this commission will hear public comments or testimony on the application. All comments must be received during the public hearing in the following order. We will read correspondence into the record. The applicant or agent will make a brief presentation. We will then entertain comments in favor of the application, then comments in opposition to the application, and then we'll entertain general comments for those of you who have no opinion whatsoever for or against this application. We'll then entertain rebuttal by the applicant. If there is new testimony being permitted, we will go through the process again. Okay? Are there any questions on that? We'll follow normal decorum, hopefully, because this is an issue that some people do have certain passions about, shall I say. But we're here simply to receive evidence to help us make our ultimate decision. So with that, we will, well, you know what, before I do that, I do want to clarify, because this is a somewhat confusing, a bit of a confusing application. Before we move to the correspondence, I just want to clarify what specifically we are actually, the public hearing is now, because there are two applications before the amendments for this project. And this application, 13-003R, is specifically for activities that are directly impacting the wetlands, so this would be a proposed a bridge, the upgrade of the crossing, certain discharge structures, and the like, okay? By their very nature, these are deemed significant activities and we're obligated to hold a public hearing. The remainder of the project, those areas that are in what is considered a regulated area, a review area, are subject to a separate application, 13-002R. Okay? So I hope that's clear, and or will become clear as the evening progresses. So if anyone has comments relative to those other types of activities, those we are taking up outside of this application at our regular monthly meetings. And you're certainly welcome to encourage you to attend those meetings. So I hope that is clear. So with that, then we have the engineer for the applicant. As you state your name for the record, and then you want to give us a presentation on both here and any specifically anything related to this application or anything what will modify prior to special application.
Great. Well, thank you. I am Joe Crouse. I'm the project manager for the new Morgan School. With me I have Chris Cardany from Langan Engineering, and I have our project architect, Brooks Fisher. Tonight, I'm just going to give a brief overview of the work that we're proposing under this application, which is for a pedestrian bridge and a culvert replacement. Those are really what we want to be talking about tonight. Those are located at the existing culvert crossing in this location. We have proposed a two-way traffic as well as a pedestrian walkway so that we separate those two. And we've also proposed that really the narrowest point of crossing of the Indian River, a pedestrian bridge which will span above any floodway and be completely outside of the wetlands. Then we have some discharges as well from the site. So in general, those are the three pieces that we're looking for to discuss tonight to present to you. The culvert replacement, you've seen, everybody's been out there, they've seen the existing culvert. We're looking to take that out and replace it with another metal culvert. Again, the pedestrian bridge, which will be a free structure located on a couple of foundations and spanning the river, and then discharges from our site. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Chris. He's also going to respond to some of those specific items that were included in the letters that were read into the record. And again, I will be responding at the end to comments made by Mr. Wright. Thank you.
For the record, I'm Chris Cardany, professional engineer with Langan Engineering, and I have two easels tonight. Should I set up here?
Just to help the folks who did come here and I'm sure are interested, is there a way to sort of swing to the side?
Yeah.
Yeah, that would
So
be.
that we can see
Yeah.
it and
Thank you.
see it too?
So just to give a brief overview, we're here again for the culverts. The application was split into two pieces, 002R, which is the school, the parking and fields, and then today's application 003R, which is the crossings themselves. Just to give you an overview of the site, Killingmore Turnpike, the Joel School's up here, Oak Ridge, and the existing crossing is right here. The proposed pedestrian crossing is in this location. This also gives you a rendered site plan. It's a little bit easier to see. And the location of the proposed school, parking on either side, tennis courts, bridge in this location, and a culvert here. Ball fields on the east side of the river. This is the Indian River that comes through here. So to walk you through the first crossing, this is the pedestrian bridge. It's about 6 feet wide. It's over 60 feet, close to 68 feet in clear spanning. It's outside the regulated area. It's outside the wetlands. There are concrete abutments with riprap slope to protect from scour on either side. And then the lowest supporting member, we've submitted sections, both east-west and north-south. It's a little hard to read from here, but this is the section AA that shows the stream, the river cross-section. The 100-year floodplain is just over 36, and our lowest horizontal member would be placed above the 100-year floodplain. So it's a freestanding structure. We've looked at a few options. It seems that this is what we're looking towards at this point. We may look at some other options, but essentially concrete abutments on either side. This illustration here is a core 10 steel. It has a rust feel. Over time it weathers, it'll be more brown than orange. Actually, this is the quality on this photo makes it look a little oranger than it is. But it's a rustic, as you can see in this atmosphere, it's very rustic, very neutral, and gets the job done. It has a timber decking, so it has a country feel, which we really like in terms of this location. In terms of the Culvert crossing, if you remember from the site walk, you were out there today. We also submitted pictures with the letter that was read into the record. It's about 33 feet wide. It's a mix of gravel and pavement above it. You can see from this section, this is looking south. So this is the northern opening. So it's a 102 inch, which is 8.5 feet. It's a round corrugated metal pipe. It's got very shallow cover, somewhere between 9 and 12 inches of cover. And it's over 30 years old. We have mapping that goes back to the late 70s, and it was on there as part of the flood study, and actually called Farm Road Bridge. You can see this is some makeshift head wall, just some boulders placed on either side. You can see that there's some evidence of rusting and pitting, some disfiguration, but overall it's in fair condition. In terms of the visibility, the visible parts that we've seen, we haven't done a detailed structural analysis or looked under the water to see its condition. But it's aged quite a bit, and we're building a new school, and the intent is that we want this to be built to last. We're also going to be introducing a higher level of vehicles, either for maintenance. We want the ability for H20 loading, heavy-duty loading for emergency access. And we would want to stabilize this slope more in line with DOT or FHWA standards than what you see out there today. It's held up well, but will it hold up for the next 30 years? We don't think so.
What would those new standards be?
It's just based on velocities and the actual flows, and I'll show the plan. So this is a section in this direction, east-west.
Right.
So we have the arch pipe. Right now it's an 8.5 foot round diameter. We're proposing, the dimensions for that now are 117 inches by 79, which is 9 3/4 feet and 6.6 feet. So it's about 2 feet shorter and about 1.25 feet wider. But in terms of geometry and hydraulics and the way it operates, it'll be very similar to what's out there. We're essentially replacing this in kind. We're looking at this as a maintenance project, a replacement project. This isn't a new culvert. The river isn't new. These aren't new flows. We're trying to maintain what's out there today. But here's a picture of a culvert that we did in Derby.
Yeah.
And it's a very similar, it would look very similar to this. You have a new corrugated arch pipe. You have the bevels that extend from the top roughly at a 2-to-1 slope. And you're seeing the riprap fill on either side of that up to the banks.
Okay. Now, what about passage of any, I don't know, we don't have a report on whether any fish are in the river or anything like that. But as far as passage of wildlife through there,
Well,
and such.
yeah, it's equivalent in terms of area. We are extending the top by about 10 feet or so. When I say we're extending, the dimension, there's two dimensions. There's a top dimension where we're extending by about 10 feet, and then if you look at the very bottom, it'll be about the 20-foot, 25-foot expansion of the length. If there were concerns about passage of fish or other wildlife.
You might not have been concerned about it before, but I'm not. I don't know what moves up and down that river. I think we probably should have somebody who could tell us when it's moving up and down, or not moving up and down that river.
Right.
But I think we ought to think about at least making provisions so that something that lizards or whatever can get through there, turtles and stuff, without having to climb over.
I think, Bert, that we do have a report from the consultant. Do you have a status report on that? Would that be perhaps you, Mr. Crouse?
We will be providing a report from Mr. Narcy once it's received. In terms of the bottom of the culvert, it's our intent to lay that with level or with the existing stream bed, and then to provide a natural bottom through that culvert. And that's what's our intent is for these plans, so that we have a natural bottom at the bottom of this culvert.
Okay.
What's the max capacity for the culvert itself?
It'll be about 500 CFS before it overtops the roadway. The full flow capacity is just under 400 CFS. So
And it goes up and over?
Up and over. It'll reach at around a 10-year storm. A vehicle span is 60+ feet, and that pedestrian bridge is in the narrowest part, so that's 60 feet. You can imagine if we have to, go with a clear span that's more than that, you're looking at quite a task for pedestrian vehicle rating. And so if we looked at areas where we encroach into the wetlands with our abutments, obviously that's more disturbance than what we're showing here. So we looked at a number of options, and we believe that these minimize the impacts to the wetlands. In terms of the permitting, we are coordinating with DEEP and Army Corps to determine their jurisdictional their jurisdiction on this project. And speaking with Tom, it doesn't look like there'll be an Army Corps because this isn't navigable water, but those are certainly things that we want to cross off the list. And if they do have jurisdiction, we would conform to their requirements.
And so, sorry to interrupt, but with that, it strikes me that then has the potential to change.
If they have jurisdiction.
Well, any of those, the 401 water quality certification potentially.
That typically doesn't apply for a culvert or a repair like this, so I'm not sure that would be needed. We know that from another job in town for pedestrian crossing, OLIS was one of the permits to cross off the list. Flood management certification is typically a state action in a floodplain. The town is looking to fund this improvement themselves as a maintenance project. So if we don't have an action for the culvert in the floodplain by a state agency, I'm not sure that that would apply either. So again, we would be coordinating with those offices just to finalize their jurisdiction. Does that answer your question?
Only, I guess, the only question, until that is confirmed with those offices, it's certainly that we would want to act on an application one way or the other until it's confirmed, because it has the potential to change what you're doing, and suspecting that you would have to come back to us.
Yeah, well, those processes, as you know, are very lengthy, and what we would envision is probably coming back to this commission after. If there are significant revisions, we would come back to this commission and review those.
Well, I think it's important to note that we have been in contact with both the Army Corps and the DEP, and their initial indications are that they do not have jurisdiction over this work. So I think that that's very important to know.
Okay.
And I don't think that we've received that in writing at this time, and I think that's Chris's hesitancy perhaps, but they have both indicated that they do not have jurisdiction on this project.
Obviously, if you get a letter to that effect, we appreciate it.
That's
Yeah.
I do want you to know, though, that we have been in touch with them, and both have indicated that this is a local jurisdiction. Thank you, Chris. And subsequent to that early March letter, we did today receive comments from Mr. Lane dated March 19th. Also, we will be constructing this as a separate project. We're hoping to do this summer, actually, during the lowest flow periods, during August, so that we can get down to 1 CFS. So we're really pumping as little as we can so that we can get in and replace this culvert, do that over the summer months. The pedestrian bridge would be later on, probably a couple of years out, near the end of the overall project. But the culvert we're looking to do earlier, whereas the pedestrian bridge would float out a little bit further. Asking about a timetable, how long it would take to complete this work. Total project time for this, and I'm talking about the culvert now, is probably around 3 weeks. You're talking about a 3-week duration to get in and construct, remove it and replace this culvert, replace the riprap, and be completely gone. We of course will leave our erosion sedimentation control measures up for a period of time until we make sure everything's established and that we're not going to be impacting wetlands anymore. So those would probably stay into the fall until there was an inspection. We were advised that we should take those down. Our intent is to maintain the same stream characteristics that we have today, so that we're not changing impact either upstream nor downstream. We don't want the unintended consequences of changing this crossing. And that was really all of the notes. Tom, did I cover everything? Excellent.
I believe you did inadvertently skip over number 5, I believe, which had to do with just an explanation of the silt stack.
I'm sorry. Yeah, it's more of a note. It says, as shown on the plan, the silt stacks are going to be provided for dewatering. And will this be part of the utility installation? We would definitely do it as part of the utility installation as well, as another precaution. Thank you.
So with that, that closes our portion of the presentation.
I guess before we move into the public, and you've all been very patient, thank you very much, and I don't want to wait too much longer, but just if you could speak generally about any mitigation that you are considering as part of this relative to that stream belt. I don't know if you've been thinking about it, if you're considering anything, or if you're waiting on a report from Mr. Snarski, because my understanding, our understanding is that may be part of that.
That's exactly correct. And so we were going to take that mitigation as part of 002R, and that's going to be part of his report. He's also doing a vernal pool assessment as well, and he needed to wait a couple of weeks until the timing was right for the eggs to really be able to verify whether we had a vernal pool or not. So the main body of his report is complete. I had a conversation with him earlier this week and should be seeing that later this week. But the mitigation that you talk about will be part of that report and will be provided to the Commission.
All right, with that, we will move into the public comment period. As I had indicated earlier that the way we will entertain testimony is first those that are in favor, followed by those in opposition, and then sort of general comments, and we'll give the applicant an opportunity to address them. So with that, if anyone cares to speak who's in favor of it, just please give your name for the record. Anybody?
Speak in favor of it.
All right.
Willie Fritz, First Selectman. I've been spending a lot of time with Joe, Chris. Mr. Lane has been good enough to meet with us on the site, as has Wade. We pulled this out. It's still being funded by the school project, but it's pulled out of the school project as far as state approvals. I've gotten verbals from DEP and Army Corps that they have no jurisdiction. I'll make sure we get letters to that effect. And the reason we wanted to do this is, first of all, first and foremost, I think we can save a lot of money. We'll put it out to bid through the town. We'll get a better number on it. Then it'll be a part of this project. We don't have to wait till after the state approves the overall project to do this crossing for the culvert. We need to improve access to the other side of the site, and as Joe and Chris have stated, we will entertain any recommendations you may have as to the crossing itself. I know what has been proposed, 20 some odd feet longer than what is currently there. Vehicularly wise, we probably don't need the 22 feet of travel. Talking to the fire chief, we can put 10, 11 feet. We only have one lane going into the town beach right now. There's a lot more traffic going into the town beach than will be going on the other side of the river down there. And if possible, improving the upstream conditions, because it does dam up at times, if something you'd like to see as a committee, commission, and we'll recommend that. We would certainly entertain doing any of that work. So everybody's been working hard on this to try to get this done so everybody can come to an agreement on it. Thank you.
Could you just, I want to make sure I understand, clarify what you initially said. You pulled this specific.
Just that crossing is not being submitted to the state as the overall school project. The footbridge, it'll get submitted. It could potentially be eligible for reimbursement, probably not. But if it's submitted as part of the overall package, you have to wait for BSF to approve it in order to do the work. We think it's something that needs to be done sooner than later. So we've decided to do this crossing now rather than wait for the state to approve it as part of the overall package. And again, I don't want to go into it, but if it's approved as part of the overall package, it triggers prevailing rate, which is 25% above the cost that we can bid it out of the town side and do the work for. So, or if not more.
I don't care about finance.
I know, I do though.
I'm glad somebody did. Thank you. Anyone else like to speak in favor?
Jerry Lees. I just wanted to concur with what Willie said and kind of explain the thought process behind why we as a building committee decided to take on this project. It was really from Langan Engineering coming to us saying that, you know, this culvert that we currently have would be fine for the use the way it is, but it isn't going to last the 60 or more years that a school would last. And we just felt we had an obligation to make sure that the town wasn't going to get saddled with replacing that culvert in 10, 20 years when it finally does decide to die. So we're hoping that we can replace it now rather than having the town have to do it some years from now when and if it does fail. We really want to try and just put it back to the way it originally was. And I'm sure you heard from our engineer from Langan and Joe, we're going to try and do it in the best way that we can.
Yeah.
Is less.
Well, let me ask you a question, maybe it's more a question for the engineer. If it wasn't being replaced, what would be the process for bringing in utilities? Would it still be, I'll let you answer that. Would it be significantly similar, or are you minimizing the overall impact by doing it together, or?
There's a couple ways we would look at that, honestly. That there's we need to bring power over to the field side. Currently there's overhead There's a pole on the east side of the river. So there's a way that we could bring power and telecommunications over to that side. That's what Chris was talking about, the conduits. However, we prefer to have our utilities underground. And so this allows us the opportunity to run in conduits with spare conduits in case we need to pull in the future as well. From a water line, there's a couple ways we could do it. We're showing it located with our culvert crossing, and I think that the way Chris and I have talked about it is leaving it, and then you can pull the water main, at a future date as part of the project. I think that works very well with this. We could install it with the pedestrian bridge as well. So there's a few ways that we could bring utilities from the east side to the west side and vice versa.
Anyone else would like to speak in favor? No, hearing none. Is there anyone here this evening that would like to speak in opposition? Would anyone like to just make comments or ask questions of the applicant? Anyone else with general comments, questions, looking for clarification? No? Anyone on the commission? Do you have a sense at all when you might have additional information on some of the mitigation or any function value assessment from Mr. Snarski? I know I don't want to keep belaboring this, but obviously we don't want to close the public hearing if we do need that information from him.
I talked to Mr. Snarski on Monday, and he had finished his report, with the exception of the vernal pools that I mentioned that he needed a couple more weeks of field investigation on. And so I expect to see that report probably tomorrow, perhaps by the end of the week, I'd say for sure. So that was the indication that I've received.
I guess it would certainly be our intent then to hold the public hearing open, continue it until we receive that. Let me just get Tom's. Tom, would you feel the same thing if Rich is still waiting on, Mr. Snarski is still waiting on the weather to cooperate?
You basically, it comes down to, the time frame for that. We are in a season, but it could take 4 weeks. It depends on the weather. It's going to dictate when we can verify it. But it hasn't been any movement yet, so it's still too early to verify.
He did say that he was issuing his report, and then he would leave that portion of it open for amendment. So we will have his report, and then the vernal pool issue will be an amendment to his report.
Anybody have anything else? If not, I would entertain a motion to adjourn this to...
Continue.
I'm sorry, continue till...
Continue till we get the information on the...
Well, we need to pick a date, location, etc.
Okay. Tuesday the 9th.
Okay, we're settling on Tuesday the 9th.
Yes, sir.
Tuesday, April 9th, 7 o'clock.
Yep.
In the green room.
Yep.
I make a motion that we continue this public meeting of IWC
Just the public hearing.
0003R, public hearing, to Tuesday, April 9th at 7 o'clock.
In the green room.
In the green room
Of the
William Stanton Andrews Memorial Town Hall.
54.
Pardon me?
54.
54 East Main Street, Clinton, Connecticut, 06413.
Second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? No? That's good, folks.
Yes, sir.
Excellent. Jeremy, you think you'll be here?
If you're on a Tuesday, probably I won't be here till like 8 or 9 o'clock.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
We learned last night that the town is taking over the building of a culvert at 71 Killingworth Turnpike. And that was news to me. I thought that was part of the school program. But I'd like to remind the Board of Selectmen that under Section 5-7, the Board of Selectmen shall have the following powers and duties. Shall authorize the execution of contracts, leases, deeds, and other legal instruments by the First Selectman. I think it was about a month or so ago you learned that we had a 3-year contract with McGuire. My impression is that more and more contracts and more work are being done without the authorization of the Board of Selectmen. And that can only go on so long as you permit it to go on. So I just want to point that out to you. Thank you very much.
I think that was done under emergency order. That's why it was allowed. So. But as far as the school,
a 3-year contract was under emergency order.
Well, we're part of the FEMA with the
okay.
Yeah. As far as the culvert coming out of the school project, it's still part of the school project. It's just the work is going to be done as a town project versus going through Bureau of School Facilities for approval. Because otherwise,
where does the money come from?
Out of the school project.
Same thing.
Same thing.
The good part would be we could do it before you start.
Right.
It's got to be done anyhow. Secondly, FIP doesn't have to get there if we do it.
No percentages, no
the
prevailing rate.
doesn't get the portion of it.
Right.
And there's not if we could do it for less, then we could do it for under prevailing wage. So it would just save the town money.
A little cheaper.
We can get it done before, if we can get it done soon before they really need to be working on both sides, it'd be better to have it done before the whole school starts.
My point is that you ought to be discussing it in this room. It shouldn't be done without you knowing about it. And my impression was that might have happened.
No, we did it as part through the building committee.
But it is still part of the school project.
Right, exactly.
It is paid through
the school project.
It's just...
You seem to have it both ways. Sometimes you have it in the school project, and it has prevailing wage, and it doesn't, when it doesn't, and it just seems to me that you've got to be clear on these things, and that these things should be aired in the Board of Selectmen. They shouldn't be done, and you find out about it separately. I mean, you know about it because you're on the building committee.
Correct. Right.
But the other people don't know about it. It would never be reported to you if I hadn't mentioned it.
Well, then go out to bid, and then we have to award it.
But we wouldn't hear about that either.
Yeah, we bring it aboard to you guys.
No, we never see those things.
Well, if the money's already been approved.
Well, there
Exactly.
you go. Yeah,
Right.
both sides there.
Well,
No, we never see bids.
yeah, but you guys aren't the building committee either. We have a representative to the building committee on the selectmen, so that's why it's not brought here. It's a building committee project. It's just going to be bid through the town.
Yeah, I'm just repeating what's in the charter. Let me remind you that the charter is a contract with the people. Once you break that contract, you nullify it. And if you keep doing this, at some point, you will have nullified the charter.
This is a question I've had since day one, is the difference, and I mentioned this to you last week and the week before, the difference between professional and contractual services, because one, the First Selectman is entered into by himself, right. The other, the board is required to be involved. And I don't know where that line exists. There has to be some criteria.
You need a definition of professional service?
Yeah, and you know what? I asked Charter Revision to refine that and define it, and they didn't touch it. And it's very unclear where that line is drawn. Because to me, you're signing a contract with a professional, so that's a professional service, so we should be involved, or vice versa. I can't even remember which. Right. But that is something that definitely needs clarification and definition. And with 2 lawyers on the board,
we're not lawyers.
Both of whom were on Charter Revision.
We want a simple definition, though. We don't want to have a lawyer.
Yeah, exactly. We just need to know.
There'd be too many words.
Right.
Right, Brad?
That's right.
You got 3 lawyers.
I believe the charter only says that you do not need to get bids on that.
Professional services.
It doesn't say that the Board of Selectmen do not have to approve it. I think there's a difference there. I think you still are responsible for authorizing contracts, which would be an engagement with an attorney or an engagement with an architect, but that you shall authorize what the First Selectman does. That's what the charter says.
Okay. Now, what about like in the, not this particular case, but say stuff with a municipal building? Does that committee have to come back to the Board of Selectmen when they decide on, say, an architect or an engineer? Or...
If the First Selectman is going to sign a contract with somebody, as I understand it, that they shall authorize the execution of contracts, leases, deeds, and other legal instruments by the First Selectman.
I'll have to find out, if the money's already been approved, then I didn't think you had to do that.
Say like Elliott Windows.
Well, the thing with those projects though, is with that money was approved through a bonding resolution, which already authorized me to sign.
That's what I.
Yeah, those resolutions authorized me to sign contracts, enter into contracts for the projects.
I think it authorizes the project, doesn't necessarily authorize
Well,
each of the individual contracts.
All right, well, we'll find out. I'll pull out those resolutions.
Yeah, it's something that has needed clarification for a long time.
Okay.